Then some consider the next level, which is the economic one, the private one, the business one, that works. And then some of us, barely some of us, consider the citizens. Consider cybercrime today, consider computers, consider botnets. Can you give me the number? Just throw out the number, even think about it. How much of all this population of users do you know of? How many computers can you just go to and be sure that you will not find any sort of malware on? Spyware, malware, botnets, whatever else it may be. I don't count how many are infected, I'm counting how many are not. How many of these are botnets? I stopped counting a long time ago. So, yes, home computers, home consumers, users, clients, the civilians themselves, they are now the critical infrastructure. And in Estonia, it proved to be the case. Consider all the attacks from outside of Estonia, which came from botnets. But this is not about botnets. Then they started attacking from within Estonia. It was regular botnet attacks, but still, consider what might have happened, because this is a case of what did happen. Now, we talked about malicious code and all these computers that have it, about botnets. Let's just run away from Estonia for 1 minute and talk about Winnie. Anybody heard about Winnie? Yes, you did. Winnie is basically a Japanese language P2P file sharing application. It's not that good, but it's in Japanese. So I'm going to exaggerate again and say that it's not every, computer in Japan has Winnie on it. There have been some leaks, there have been some secret information that was leaked because of Winnie being on computers that shouldn't have been on. But consider an alternative. And by the way, the Winnie author was actually arrested. I believe he's now released, but I'm not sure how willing he will be to patch Winnie if anything ever happens. There are people going around having Winnie 0 days. I hear about them every day. I don't believe what I hear, but any basic program has vulnerabilities in it. Now, if Winnie exists on so many computers in Japan, it's just one way to explain the critical infrastructure that users or home computers pose. Not necessarily an immediate risk, but it is certainly a risk. I don't envy the Japanese. They arrested the guy, but not for this. It was for copyright issues. Not necessarily botnets. So, who was behind the attacks? Everybody wants that answer, don't you? So, this is a kind of used joke by now, but hey, what the heck. The KGB! Now, the KGB no longer exists. It probably exists under a different name. But it wasn't them, in my opinion. Let's look at this. So, we have seen some coordination going on. We don't know if it was ad hoc, some sort of loose coupling of people, organizations working together after they started working, or if it is a planned assault. We can't really tell from technological information only. And we don't have that many logs to begin with because of all the mess that was happening. But what is some sort of meme, a blogosphere epidemic? Maybe we have seen memes spread around the blogosphere before. This was very quick though. This was very organized for a meme. I'm not really sure about it, but hey, who am I? Could be. And there is one thing we need to remember, that the internet is perfect for plausible deniability. Even if I did attack, even if it did come from my computer, I could always say, well, no, I didn't. Somebody else attacked through my computer. It's called the Trojan horse defense. And hey, it could be true. So, who knows? Spoofed attacks, botnet attacks, compromised machines everywhere. Which brings us down to, in information warfare, and this is very basic for information warfare, you may know your rivalries, you may know who your enemies are, you can point at them right now, but you may not know who your attacker who is actually attacking you is. That's a critical understanding for information warfare. Let me ask you a question. In information warfare, or warfare in general, can anybody please define in regular warfare what a battle is for me? Work with me, people. What's a battle? You know, battle? B-A-T-T-L-E? Anybody? I'll pick somebody. What? Hold on. One people at a time? One person at a time? A process. Okay, a process. And you wanted to say? An engagement between representatives from two sides. Anyone else? Let's say it is a meeting of two opposing forces, just for now. It could be a process, it could be an engagement. Can we agree on that? Can anybody think about the internet and tell me what a battle would look like? What are the two sides? Do you even know who your attacker is? A basic question. Can you maneuver your defensive forces to become offensive forces, or your offensive forces to become defensive? What? You don't want to do that. It's not clear. And the very interesting thing, which I usually say at the beginning of the talk, that for information warfare, we have a very interesting structure of information or knowledge. We have the very top. The very top says, hey, this is national security strategy. This is our general strategy for war. We know there is war, we know there is risk, we know the potential impact of world destruction, right? Then we drop down and go all the way down here. We may have some information along the way, dots, filling in data, or some examples of the past. But as far as I know publicly, there is nothing there. Tactics, logistics. How do you plan a battle? You drop all the way down to the very basic form of computer-to-computer attacks. Packets moving on a network, or equivalent. Estonia, although there may be some other examples that are public, although there are maybe some other examples which are not public, Estonia gives us a case study which may not always be true. It may not always hold true for any engagement. And consider the term. I mean, it's amazing. I read in a paper a year ago, a US general saying, it will be a while before we are fully engaged in cyberspace. Now, forget everything else. Just think about this term, engaged in cyberspace. Mind-blowing. But I can't really talk further on information warfare because we don't have time. What I can say is, theories aside, let's throw them aside, Estonia is a culture of full disclosure. It's unbelievable. The reason we have all this information, the reason we can study this, the reason we can take the case studies and see what actually happened, see the strategies that we may ascertain from this, is because Estonians believe in full disclosure. I spoke to Ilar and said, look, Ilar, I want to write something about infrastructure. And I'm mentioning something here that could put a target to somebody, and that's not good for your infrastructure. And he said, so? Now, he didn't mean it that way. I'm, of course, making it sound very badly. But the point is, if the Estonians have a problem, they want it known. They want it public. They say, let's make it public, we will fix it. It's a complete opposite of what we're used to. Full disclosure doesn't come next or second. It comes first. Unbelievable. A friend of mine heard a talk about the Estonians' implementation of the PKI IDs for the country. And the guy comes on stage and says, here's where we succeeded. Cool. And he doesn't say, here are challenges we faced or issues that are yet to be resolved. He says, here is where we failed. Very honest. I love Estonians. Or at least the culture. The blonde girls too, but you get the point. So, let's look about this. Who was behind the attacks? We can actually see several. I'm listing 4, and these are the main 4, the only 4, I'm not sure right now, indications of who was behind the attacks. So, first, it was started virtually the same time as the incidents in Tallinn streets. Weird. It wasn't even in the news as far as I know. The Russian-speaking or Russian language blogosphere was updated periodically, responding to the defenders' actions. Interesting. Originally, no bots, or virtually no bots, attacked from within Estonia, and we've discussed that. And the botnet attack that was specially crafted. Again, interesting, I guess. So, the Russians are coming, or not. This could be a coincidence, but even each of these incidents alone show some coordination. So again, ad hoc, loose coupling of people working together, a full assault. It's not yet known, I doubt we ever will with this technological information only, or technical information. Now, was it the Russians? Absolutely yes. Was it Russia? I would say absolutely not, but that's an opinion. You can read what the Russian politicians say and what the Estonian politicians said, and you can see that the Russian politicians don't really do much as far as wanting to attack, but I think it's pretty cool that the attack's happening. At least my opinion of what's been written. But nothing really saying that it was them unless you read the news and statements. So we can discuss a little bit of strategy. And it took me a while to come up with this thing called unwitting zombie fifth column. I tried to come up with an explanation for how do we call this warrior or participant, where you may be a soldier in an army and at the same time a traitor or not. You can, if you're firing on your own forces, there are terms for this. There are traitors, right? There is friendly fire. What's a botnet? What's a compromised host? I'm not talking about the spoofed attack right now, although single way, one way, uni, it could be the same thing. So a fifth column is a term I came with after a lot of searches, although it's pretty well known, originally coming from Leo or Lev. Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot his name. Oh well, in Russia. And Trotsky, Lev Trotsky in Russia, who came up with this, but of course I'm sure it's not that new, but the term. But it's really attributed, and this is from two different Wikipedias in different languages, which say different things, originally attributed to years later the Spanish Civil War, where the general was asked, how many forces do you have? What's the size of your force? And he said, I have 4 columns, and my 5th column is in Madrid. We're not sure if he meant people of Madrid will rise up and help him, or an actual infiltrated force inside of Madrid, but it's interesting. So how do you call a soldier without knowledge fires both at you and your enemy? So I had this biological warfare example, which is, for example, let's do a prisoner exchange, but infect the other side. Didn't really catch that much. We spoke about botnets and Winnie. Now, Martin van Crevel discussed 30 years ago the issue of we're no longer going to fight countries, but rather organizations. It sounds pretty clear, but it wasn't back then. It was the first to say it. I'm not in any way comparing myself to Martin, but I'm saying we're fighting populations, at least online. What we have seen is pretty interesting. So let's talk about the attacker strategy briefly. Cyber terrorism, or internet riot, or cyber riot, I hate everything that goes with cyber. Not exactly the same thing. We have seen a population, or a mob, come to life. We have seen what I would call war by proxy, followed by anonymous war, or the other way around. And it's pretty much similar to mob control, or mass psychology. Let's consider if you're a part of a mob, and you're going around and saying things like, hey, everybody, or maybe you're pushing to the right, or maybe there are 20 people with you in the mob and you're pushing to the right, the mob is very likely to move to the right. If you're saying, down with that statue, and you alone, or 20 people with you, the mob is likely to take that statue down. So the whole idea of the blogosphere, the internet, and online mob control, online mass psychology, I would say that's taking psychological warfare and putting it, or intelligence warfare, and putting it on the offensive. I believe this will receive a lot more attention in the future. This is interesting. Now, the second thing we discussed already, which is attacking from the world and from within Estonia, respectively. attacking the business and